that you were talking about. Yeah. So, and I thought it was your phone buzzing because I'm like, it's not my phone, but I can hear that actually.
Like, what is
that? All right. So Halloween's tomorrow. Do you guys have any special plans? Are there a lot of kids that come to your neighborhoods?
Not ours.
Yeah, we used to have a ton of kids, but I guess maybe we felt that way because our kids were younger and they were part of the ton of kids. I would get the tractor out in the trailer and I would, kids would pile in, we'd get the straw and we'd take them all around the neighborhood. But now we just go in our basement and shut off all of our lights.
I know. I just don't want the candy in my house, because who eats it? I eat it. And that's not what I want to do.
No. Yeah.
Very true.
No, we're actually going over our sons. They bought a house together back in 2020, and our new daughter-in-law and our new grandson. It's his first Halloween, so we're going to go hang out at their house. So no more. We're not going to barricade in the basement this year. We're actually going to go over and hand out candy and sit in their driveway. So
that is awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and get us started. We have some people watching. If you could go ahead and say hello in the chat, we love that. We want to make sure that you can hear us and you can see us. So that always helps if we see the comments coming through. And plus, we just want to know who's watching and love to see you folks out there. So thank you for joining us today and welcome to the Dog Gurus Live. So the Dog Gurus provides pet care business education and coaching. We empower pet care entrepreneurs at every stage of their business. As pet care business owners ourselves, we understand the demands of running a pet care business, and we have been through every challenge you are currently facing, conquered it, and discovered the strategies and tools necessary to make a profit in the pet care business. So ultimately, what we want for you is to help you become safer, efficient, effective, and more profitable. And one way to get a jump start on that is joining us at the Pet Business Growth Workshop. That's going to be February 26th through the 28th. In 2025 at Fort Worth, Texas. So please come join us. It's going to be a great time. Tomorrow is the last day to get $50 off your admission with our spooky sale. So it'll be 3 days of great education from the best in the industry, including our special guest today, Joe. So my name is Shantae Marquez. I am a Profit Network coach at the Dog Gurus, and I'm joined with my work bestie, Carrie Campbell, who is also a Profit Network coach, and Joe Zuccarello from Paragon School of Pet Grooming. Joe has a wealth of advice to offer and has been in the industry for a long time doing a variety of roles. And we are just so thankful to have you join us. Thank you, Joe.
Oh, well, thanks for the invitation. I'm honored to be part of this. I'm honored to talk to the audience who you've collected. We too at Paragon have been promoting this particular event as well as the conference that's coming up in February. So for all of you out there, come join us, right? It's a lot of fun. You guys do a spectacular job. You're wonderful hosts and you put on a wonderful event. So I would just encourage anybody watching, not only for you to come out, but spread the word. Tell your friends and colleagues in the industry to come out. It's a good time. Certainly a ton of learning.
Yeah, absolutely. And Joe, before we get started talking on our topic today, do you want to just give them a little background about who you are, what you've done, what you're all about?
Yeah, certainly. So, I've really, truly had the pleasure of being in the pet industry my entire career. I started at 13 years old bathing dogs for a little locally owned grooming shop here in the St. Louis, Missouri area. Just on a Saturday cash employee basis. I never became a dog groomer. I just didn't have the touch or the feel for it, but I really liked the industry so much that I spent the first 22 years of my career in the pet services space. I had the honor of leading a multi-unit deluxe pet care, full service pet care facility here in St. Louis. We had about 250 staff members, 7 facilities. Lodging was about 650 dogs a night. We had 22 dog trainers. I had 60 dog groomers, right? Dog groomers, 60 groomers that worked for me. We would have about 150 dogs a day in doggy day camp. I mean, we were just really, really a busy place. Stretched limousines doing pickup and delivery all over the St. Louis area. Only one seat, the driver's seat, right? Everything else was secured cages and kennels. So the first 22 years of my industry experience was in the full service pet care space. Then I went to work for 10 years in the product part of our business. I got the chance to lead the product development and innovation for Paragon Grooming and dental products. So that was a really great time of my career, 10 years there. And now I'm 6 years in the education space, leading an incredible team of educators at the Paragon School of Pet Grooming. Along the way, industry freelance consultant and a little known fact, a guest host on HSN for about 4 years. Yeah, so I was the guy live in your living room at like 2 o'clock in the morning, right? Hawking Paragon products. So needless to say, I've had just a really incredible career. In February, I start my 40th year in the industry. So
Wow.
and I have no reason to go anywhere. It's a great industry. And for all of you that are in it, you probably would agree. So I would encourage you also throughout this conversation, please, let's chat it up, right? Put the comments and questions in the chat field. We love monitoring now. We love being able to answer your question because this is not only our time, but it's your time. So it's our time together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, congratulations, 40 years. That's a huge achievement. So
Thanks. Makes
So-
me feel really old, but it makes me sound old, but I don't feel old.
Not when you say you started at 13. You're very young.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Carrie. Yes.
all right.
Thanks, Ainsley. Appreciate it.
So let's jump into today's topic. Today, I love this topic, actually. And I'm really excited to have a conversation about it, but it's about the toxic genius in your business. And I'm sure that this term resonates with many business owners because often there's that one employee who is highly skilled and knows the job inside and out, but their behavior may be a little disruptive or toxic. And you know they're difficult, but yet you hesitate to let them go because their expertise feels irreplaceable. So does this sound familiar to anybody?
Yeah.
So what?
I bet it does.
Yeah.
So go ahead. What do you want to say? Where do we want to get started with this?
Well, here's the thing. So much of what we get to talk about in platforms like this is based on our own experience.
Okay.
It's sort of like that crazy uncle in your family, right? If you can't identify who the crazy uncle is, there's a chance it's you, right? So I guess the very first thing I'm going to say is I don't mean to offend anybody out there. If you can't identify maybe a toxic genius in your industry or in your company, or one that maybe you've had in your company before that you like learned your own big, hard, scary lessons with. I don't want to say maybe it's you, but maybe it's you, right? But in all seriousness, this particular presence in our business is very destructive. And sometimes we are, as business owners and leaders, sometimes we are, we're held hostage in our own business. That's really the best words I can use to describe it. And maybe we've all felt this way. I mean, I have a particular memory that, an experience that I'll talk about, but these are the people what is a toxic genius, right? A toxic genius, to your point, Shantae, is somebody that's really great in maybe their technical ability or their specialized skill, right? Doesn't have to be a technical skilled person, right? Doesn't have to be a groomer, doesn't have to be a trainer. It could be one of your receptionists who's just really good at their job. Or it could be maybe if you're an owner operator, maybe it's one of your leaders, maybe it's one of your managers, right?
I had a GM.
What's that?
GM that was a toxic genius. She was great in some aspects, but she was just so negative. And the moment she walked into the room every morning, it was like it took the oxygen out of the room. I mean, everybody was just now starting to tiptoe. Yeah. Walking on eggshells, right? So this is, to your point, how do we identify? What are some of the identifying traits, right? If you find yourself or your staff having to walk on eggshells around someone, if you find yourself having to compromise, we always have to change our leadership or management style for each individual because everybody's their own person, their own creature. But if you have to compromise your leadership style for this person, where you don't necessarily do for anybody else. If you're making special exceptions for somebody, if you feel, again, that if you lost this person,
you don't know what you would do, right? Usually this person is also, the customers are the last ones, if ever, to see that side of this person, right? So, and have they chased off perfectly happy, average people, right? There's a couple of things we'll talk about, but one of the, and maybe you've heard this before, a sure way to lose good people is to keep the bad ones.
Yeah.
Well, there's a saying out there that says, look, staff, they don't necessarily leave the job. They actually leave the people that are the managers that they don't like to deal with. I mean, that really is a huge thing that doesn't get enough light shed on it. But, if you see you have high turnover, it's you got to take a closer look at what it is, because there is something in control that's in your control in your business that you can help that situation. And I know that people get frustrated and they like to talk about the external forces or the workforce mentality or this and that, but there is something that you can do internal to always make something better or change the way something is to improve that situation.
Well, and sometimes we're just, go ahead, Carrie. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that, I can think of a number of examples in my tenure of owning a pet care business that leaving the door of communication always open so that your staff can come to, whoever, their direct supervisor or the manager of a department, depending on how big your facility is, or just come directly to you and express concerns is really important. Because I remember when I finally realized who this toxic person was and let them go, everybody turned around the next day and was like, oh my God. And then you start hearing all of these stories and I'm like, why didn't you come to me? I would have done this so much sooner, but yeah, it's like that balance of, making sure that they talk to you and let you know that somebody is doing something that's outside of the culture that you've created. And if you don't have that culture yet, seeing your employees get upset over certain things is a great way to say, okay, let's start working on our culture. Let's start working on some of the things that we can do to build the morale of the group that we're working with.
Well, and to your point, Carrie, you're right. I mean, the moment that this person is no longer there, the mood, the culture, the stress, there's so many, it's almost like the weight of a certain part of the world is lifted, right? And I know, and if you've never experienced that, but you have a toxic genius in your ranks, you might need to experience that to know that what we're talking about. But Carrie, one of the scary parts is especially for the skills-based positions. Now, I'm going to talk specifically about our grooming professionals, right? But this could be your trainers if you've got a veterinarian, skills-based, oh my gosh, well, if they're not here, if they're gone, I don't know how to groom. We've already established I'm not a groomer, right? Carrie, Shantae, we're not groomer, right? If you own a facility, right, all of a sudden it's like, well, then I'm out of business. Right. So there's a couple things, right? We're going to walk through some of these ways of maybe helping to not only remedy this situation, but how do we avoid it going into the future so we don't end up with the same situation as Pete and repeat happening again. But what's scary, Carrie, to your point, once your staff can open up to you, but sometimes we have staff that does open up to us, but we dig our heels in and we think we can change this person. Ain't happening. I'm sorry, it's just not, right? Only they can change themselves, right? But yet we keep hoping, wishing, praying that they're going to change, right? Like we're just going to keep breathing life into this situation. And what ends up happening, we start losing the respect of the staff that's in trouble, that's in turmoil, that's essentially, in some cases, they're just scared of this person, right? So I'll share a story with you to make this point. I had, again, 60 dog groomers. We did 100,000 grooming appointments a year. I mean, they still do that. They didn't not go out of business when I left, right? But they're still doing it. But that's, at that snapshot in time, that's what I was essentially in charge of. And we had one of the best groomers in the St. Louis area. Man, he was lights out groomer and just crazy mad skills, 12 months of pre-booked appointments. I mean, it was just, as a manager, I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, boy, if I lose him, I'm going to lose all of that business, which is sort of true, right? But I've got a calculation I want to share with you in a minute. But so one day he quit. I kid you not. I'm still, I share this because I want to be vulnerable with everybody for just a minute. I chased him to his car begging him to stay. I did. Seriously. I'm like walking up. No, come on, man. We'll make it better. You know, and right. You guys laugh, but I'm sure somebody out there has done the same thing, whether you're watching this live or on replay. But so I get him to stay, right? He stays for 3 months. During that next 3 months, I was humiliated. I lost the respect of the people that were there because I begged the toxic genius to come back. They thought they had exorcised them of, you know, here we are day before Halloween, right? They exorcised themselves of the demon, right? But here he was coming back. And if he's listening, I'm sorry, but you were a pain in the rear when you worked for me. But he's doing well for himself. He's great. He found a place that was a perfect fit. But one thing I did is I said, I'll never do that again because I was embarrassed. I was humiliated and I lost the respect of my team. So what I did is I said, you know what? I'm never going to be put in that position again. So one of the things that I did, again, this goes to one, sometimes we just have to be brave enough, courageous enough to just take our licks and remove that person from the situation. But one of the things I decided that I was never going to do is put myself in that vulnerable position again. So we started growing our own people, right? We started growing our so that I always had a replacement so that if they left, of course the business would be impacted, but it wouldn't be a wound. It would be more of a scratch, right? Because they're gonna, I mean, you know, I don't go to the same hairstylist that both of you do, right? So, but I would bet that if your hairstylist left Vanity Salon, where maybe you see her all the time and she goes to work at Mirror on the Wall Salon, right? You're probably going to follow her. Well, the same thing does happen with groomers. People are people-y. That's what happens, right? So they're going to follow this toxic genius because, again, the customer has never seen that side of them. But who did they chase away during their time with us? This is where the math comes in. I'll come up for air and see if have you guys been in that situation before? Anybody out there, please put it in the comments. Thank you for asking the question out there. But Shantae, Carrie, have you ever embarrassed yourself? I mean, I got vulnerable. Go ahead. It's your turn.
I mean, well, yeah. I mean, like I said, I mentioned, and she was in a management position and I knew, and this was when Carrie was actually my coach when I was a Profit Network member. And she knows exactly who I'm speaking about. But, but this person, I knew I needed to get rid of her. And I tried several times, but I couldn't pull the trigger because we were so busy and I should have done it. I should have just pulled the Band-Aid off and I should have just done it. But, you know, it was hard. It was hard because I didn't have a replacement and it was really busy all the time. And I personally couldn't clone myself and I needed, you know, my time to have a life too. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people can identify this, but I've definitely made this mistake before. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I think as we look at this, you know, as I had mentioned before, what are the dollars and cents to this? You know, I'm a business guy, right? I like to be able to say, okay, yeah, it hurt. Feeling wise, it hurt. And I was embarrassed, right? And I lost the respect of my team. But let's talk about the dollars and cents of this, right? If you keep one toxic genius, let's say it's a groomer. Let's just talk grooming. We keep a toxic genius groomer, right? And this person has chased off a number of people over the years, right? I've seen it. I've seen it happen. And I've had hundreds of employers that I've worked with that said the same thing. In fact, I had one of my clients, her name is Tiffany, and she came up to me. She sat in one of my seminars at one of these conferences, and she came back afterward and she was crying, like sobbing. Tiffany, if you're listening, I know you don't care if I share this story, but I won't say where you're from and your last name. But she came up to me. Now everybody's gonna be checking out Tiffany's, right? But she came up to, she was sobbing. And she said, you're identifying exactly what's happening to me. And I said, you know what you need to do, right? She said, I know, I need to get rid of them. So the next year, and she was so scared, right? So scared. And she came up to me the next year and she was beaming. I mean, smile, corner to corner, ear to ear. And I said, well, what's going on with you? She goes, it sucked, but I got rid of them. And my staff now is freaking phenomenal. And I'm like, good for you. And now, I mean, she was nominated for one of the IBI awards at the IBPSA event. I mean, her business is just popping, right? So she's just a real Phoenix story, right? But what's the dollars and cents of it? And then Terry, I see Mikey and Terry, we're going to get to you in just a second. Let me throw out this thing about dollars and cents. Keeping one groomer who can generate, let's say your average ticket price is, $80, and it's, this person can do 6 dogs a day and 5 days a week. Let's say 50 working weeks a year. This person's going to generate between $120,000 and $150,000 a year in top line revenue, right? If they chase away only 2 perfectly happy average producers in grooming, you are losing, right? Let's say they only chase away 2, because they always chase away people. But if they only chased away 2, you're looking at a loss of about $300,000 with their productivity. So you kept $120,000 a year, but you've lost almost $300,000. I mean, really, the math is easy when we look at it that way, right? So it's okay. Your business will, I promise you, your business will recover, right? And I can't make a guarantee. I don't like using a G word, but I'll tell you that, your business, I mean, it will recover. You will be a Tiffany story. So I know we have a couple of comments.
Yeah. So Mikey, she was just saying that, she's experienced this situation and had somewhat of sounds like a verbally abusive employee.
Wow.
But you know what, Mikey, don't be hard on yourself, because it's a learning experience and you're growing as an owner. And, you learn from experience. So, I bet you anything that you're never going to let somebody do that to you again. Right. So that's what you can take away from it. Right?
Yeah. And I'm going to share something with you, Mikey. I learned this tip from this CEO of Gillette Razor Company. Right. I happened to sit in on a mastermind event that he was leading. And he said, sometimes we need to invite the toxic genius to go to work for our competition. And he went further, and I'm like, how exactly does that work? And he said, sometimes we just have to tell this person, this might just not be the best. It's just not working out here. It's not good for you. It's not good for me. You know who you might really like to work for? Let me make an introduction with Betty down at Betty's Pet Grooming, because I think, that might be an environment where you're going to thrive. You want me to make that call? Sometimes we need to invite them to go to work for our competition.
Yeah, that's a good tip. So Terry, my business was in California, so I totally know where you're going with that. It does feel like it's hard, but it's not hard. I mean, look, this toxic person was not following our company culture. They were not following the policies. They were doing a number of things. So I just took it in order and I just started writing her up. And I set out like, look, first verbal warning. We're going to write it down here in 90 days. This is what I want to see from improvement. I really laid it out on paper. These are my expectations with you. Here's where I'm seeing the infractions. And this is my expectations moving forward. And when those things weren't followed through, then it was an easy conversation to come back and revisit that and say, hey, look, I just don't think this is working out for me. And you know what? When I did fire her, she was like, you know what, Shantae? She's like, you're right. And I'm really sorry for not being a good employee. She's like, it was like shocking. And she was really friendly to me afterwards. Like, she would call me from time to time because we lived close to each other. So, she just knew she wasn't trying and she was real about it. And so thankfully it didn't turn out to like a worse situation, but, document, do the write-ups, have the conversation. That's really important to really lay the case for you to let her go or him go.
And I'm going to share this. I'm going to share this with you. A good manager, a good leader, a good business owner tries to remove as much subjective management, subjective rules, and move them to objective, right? Because everybody's job gets easier. It's either right or it's not. It's either clean or it's dirty. It's either hot or it's cold. It's either black or it's white, right? So our job is to create very clear expectations. In fact, I always draw this box. What does it look like when it's done correctly, right? Does everybody see the same vision? Does everybody have that same understanding what does it look like when it's done correctly? Because then when you're outside, coloring outside the lines, or you stray outside of that, it's wrong, right? You're either in the fence or you're outside the fence. I mean, it's that objective, right? So when we get outside that box, we make immediate small corrections. We don't wait for the 5th time that they get outside the box to then address it. Because we have to, in the product space, I learned a very valuable lesson. If a customer calls a company, if a customer calls a manufacturer and says, I got a problem with this product, it's spoiled, right? Or it didn't work or whatever. Companies will make the mistake of saying, well, that's just one crazy person, or that's just one misuse, or somebody didn't follow the directions, right? But then the second one hits, man, that's just another crazy person. That's just another, then the third one, and a fourth one, and a fifth one, and a sixth one hit. But the larger your team, it could still kind of go under the radar, right? But then when the 100th person, it's like, oh my gosh, hey, what did the first person tell us? I don't know. I didn't write it down, right? Or I didn't write down the first 99, right? Well, what ends up happening is if we allow that to happen, we're not doing ourselves any service, and we're certainly not doing the staff member any service. And I'm going to bring one up bigger. We're in pet care. We're putting potentially the pets at risk, or the pet parent's confidence or peace of mind, trust at risk. So be courageous to adjust and address those small little coloring outside the lines before it snowballs and you end up in a situation where it's a really hairy situation, hairy conversation.
Well, and I'm going to go back to this because I'm the rule follower, but this is the perfect example of why you should have the foundation documents in your business. So you want to make sure you have your standard operating procedures all documented, because that is the how, right? And then you want to have your employee manual so that you've got the documented disciplinary process, so they understand that this is how they're supposed to do it. And if they don't, they're going to get a verbal warning, then they're going to get a written warning, and and each step along the way up until termination. So it's very, very important that you have all of those documents in place, because it makes dealing with these situations so much easier. You're not having to fly by the seat of your pants and kind of figure out as you go along how to take care of this person if you've got it all documented up front.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna add. Oh, go ahead, Shante.
I had a calendar, so every time something went wrong, I time-stamped it, wrote it in my notes. So when I did write up the, probation letter, or I had it actually listed, everything that I was talking about, days and times that it happened. So it was very clear.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's go one step further. And I mean, what we're talking a lot about right now, and Terry, you're right. It sounds like we waited for them to leave, or I waited for them to leave. You're right. I won't do that again, right? Because it's not on them. I have a service promise to my customers, right? It's almost like my own last name, right? It's my reputation, it's my integrity. If I allowed that to happen, oh my gosh, I mean, I'm creating a disservice for my customers. But I will tell you this. So what we're describing on these sort of after, right, as things progress and having to be reactionary, is clear expectations plus regular accountability and recognition equals results. So let's talk about that accountability and regular recognition piece. We can be proactive. Here's, try this. I think you're going to find this could be helpful. Have a standing meeting, a standing check-in with every single one of your staff members every month. 10 minutes. Don't and be there, right? And it's 10 minutes. And this is the way you start that conversation. How are you doing?
Yeah. 10
minutes, right? So yeah, even if you had 20 people, you're only talking 200 minutes. I know that's like 200 minutes. Where do I speak? You have to find that 200 minutes. What are we talking about? A little over 3 hours spread out over a whole month. Not everybody has to be on the same day. Right. Cut yourself a break, right? But my point is, if Carrie and I work together, and let's say I own the facility, Carrie was one of my employees, Carrie and I would meet on the second Tuesday of every month at 3:30, 10 minutes, right? This is such a great way to constantly be engaged with people. 80% of the reason why people leave their job is because they they're disengaged. They've stopped being paid attention to. So somebody else is going to pay attention to them. Why does that fit in a toxic genius conversation? Because left to their own devices, that could become toxic.
Mm-hmm.
They might be quiet toxic, right? The toxins we're talking about are the loud ones, right? But the quiet toxic people are the passive aggressive, the people that don't show up, the people that show up late. That's still toxic because other people are having to clean up around them and pick up their slack, right? Okay. And then we end up keeping them, especially the skilled ones we keep because we're afraid. So during these 10-minute checks, I'm going to even go as far as to give you the ingredients, right? The ingredients are they a AAA employee? Attitude, attendance, and appearance. Start with AAA rating for all of your staff members in these check-ins. AAA, attitude, attendance, and appearance. After that, below that is any form of technical or job performance. Because this equals well-rounded employee, manageable, leadable employee, attitude, attendance, and appearance. Everything below that, if we focus on the technical and not this, that's a recipe for toxicity.
Yeah, that's great. I love that AAA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, gosh, probably 35 years ago, the very first dog training class I ever took. And I remember the trainer saying that, dogs need structure, they need leadership. And in the absence of leadership, they will lead you. So they are going to come up with all these behaviors that are probably inappropriate that they're going to do because you're not telling them what your expectations are. And that is so applicable in so many other areas, but certainly with employees. So they definitely need that leadership. And I love that idea of meeting with them on a regular basis. And I think when you have those meetings, you're not only going to get the frustrations they may be experiencing, but they may also bring some great ideas on, ways to improve your systems. Maybe they can cut, some time off of the process for something, and that's going to help your payroll overall. So you can use it for many different aspects of communicating with them.
And if you go into that meeting, and again, not all of us are great leaders. I fail every day. I fail every day at being a great leader. I mean, that's what I got all these books behind, right? You could read all the books you want, but you are who you are. Mm-hmm. So let's give you some cheats, right? So first cheat, 10 minutes standing meeting with those employees, every employee every month. You don't need the 6-month review anymore. You don't need the 12-month review anymore. You're having a check-in. That's all it is a check-in. So step number 1, 10-minute standing meeting with each employee every month. Step number 2, ask 2 questions. 1, how are you doing? You don't have to be a great leader to be an okay person, an okay human. Start with first being a human, right? You might be a great leader, wonderful. You might be a great manager, great. But I don't think you get to either one of those without first being a great human. So step number 1, get those standing appointments. Step number 2, be a good human and ask them how they're doing, okay? Step number 3, what do you need? You could go as far even, what do you need to be successful in what it is that was potentially a challenge you brought up during the how are you doing situation? What do you need? Step number 3, what are we going to commit to between now and next month's check-in? That's it. That's the ingredients, right? So AAA status, these check-in meetings, standing meetings, 10 minutes once a month. Start off, how are you doing? Second question, what do you need to be successful? And the third is, what are we going to accomplish? What ground are we going to cover? What improvements, what changes are going to be expected in the next 30 days? Write it down. Because memory doesn't serve us really well after a certain period of time. So write it down and be prepared. That's the start of the next conversation. The how are you doing? You could say, how are you doing based on the things that we talked about last month? You see, you don't have to be a really great leader if you just have a really great plan.
That's awesome.
Joe, dropping the wisdom. I love it. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been a great talk, and I hope those that are listening got some really good pieces of information that they could utilize and take back and have it work for them. So again, thank you, Joe, for joining us. I'm going to wrap this up. Last thing I will say is, please, if you haven't done so already, join us in our Facebook group, Grow Your Pet Care Business. It's an awesome place to go and just get advice and be a part of the community of other business owners. And we just have 2 rules, only 2. And that is be nice and no selling in the group, because we want to keep it as a forum for advice and education. All right. So thank you so much, Joe. We will see you next week in Hershey at the Pet Boarding Care Expo. You and I still are going to go get some.
We're neighbors. We're neighbors. You and I.
Yeah, we are right next door to each other.
Awesome.
So come see us at our booth.
Yeah.
I don't have to have really great aim to throw things at you now. So, you know, it's going to be great. So.
All right. I'm going to bring some tennis balls.
Well, I was thinking more like little wadded up pieces of paper. You're going big guns now. You're bringing tennis balls. Jeez.
Oh, I'm bringing the squirt guns.
Oh gosh, perfect. I'll wear my white shirt.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you
All
again
right,
for the
we won't
invitation.
be on next week, right? Because we're going to be
We
in
will
Hershey.
not be on, like I said, because we will all of us are going to be in Hershey, Pennsylvania at the Pet Boarding and Daycare Expo, but we will return the following week. So everybody have a wonderful Halloween. Don't eat too much candy, but get some really cute pictures of some little goblins out there. Okay.
Be a good human.
Yes. Take care, guys.
Thank you.